While Comanches terrorized Parker's fort in the north, on the southern frontier, Mexicans remained a cause for concern. The wounded Major General Sam Houston convalesced in New Orleans. Texians were fortunate that a talented understudy waited in the wings. From May to October 1836, former Secretary of War Thomas Jefferson Rusk stood in as Commander-in-Chief. With it came the rank of Brigadier General. He led the Republic's armies southward, trailing, at a respectful distance, fleeing Mexican forces. Rusk was not keen for a fight, but wanted to make certain that General Fiesole kept his pledge to withdraw his troops below the Rio Grande. The Sea of Mud had wrung all the fight out of the Mexican army, but Rusk knew the Mexican Navy still remained a threat. He feared the enemy might launch an amphibious attack at some point along the Texas coastal belt. To guard against such a possibility, on May 29, 1836, he dispatched 30 Texas Rangers under Captain Isaac Watts Burton to patrol the zone between the mouth of the Guadalupe River and Mission Bay. Burton's Rangers were keen to carry out their mission, but were unfamiliar with the coastal region. They required help from locals who knew the lay of the land. General Rusk assigned 3 refugio colonists to ride with the mounted squadron to act as guides. They were Nicholas Lambert, Walter Lambert, and John Keating. On June 2nd, Captain Burton received reports that a suspicious schooner lay anchored in Copano Bay. Since the vessel flew no colors, he could not be sure which nation it served. The Rangers mounted up and rowed 20 miles to the coast. Burton concealed his men behind the dunes and bushes and ordered that they build no campfires. Like the crew of the ship, he wanted to conceal his identity. Through his spyglass, Burton made out the craft's name, Watchman. But for whom did it watch? Captain Burton had 2 of his men stow their weapons and make distress signals. Aboard Watchman, sailors hoisted the Star-Spangled Banner and the Texian Star and Stripes ensign. That struck Burton as incongruous. Normally, a ship would fly one national standard or the other, but both? The captain instructed his men to make no response. This seabird might be flying under false colors. Burton's wariness was warranted. Several moments passed. Then the deceptive banners came down, and the Mexican tricolor ascended. The 2 signalmen feigned excitement and motioned the crew to send a boat to save them. The Rangers lay in wait. The ship's launch crunched into beach sand, but the 2 distraught signalmen had disappeared. Puzzled, Watchman's captain and 4 crewmen made their way inland. Then the Rangers sprang from the brush, fell upon the startled seamen, beat them down, and took them prisoner. Because Burton had allowed the launch crew to journey so far ashore, those still aboard could not observe the capture of their shipmates. The captain hatched a daring scheme. He ordered 4 of his men to guard their prisoners. Burton and 16 Rangers then boarded the launch and rowed toward Watchman. Because the Mexican mariners were expecting their captain's prompt return, they suspected nothing out of the ordinary. The Rangers pulled alongside, scrambled up, and overwhelmed the astonished crew. The Texians placed the Mexican captain and his crew in chains and confined them in the hold. Burton was delighted to find the ship heavily laden with supplies intended for the use of Santana's army, provisions Texian soldiers sorely needed. Watchmen might now hoist the Texas ensign with no taint of deception. When Texian officials learned of Burton's coup, they could hardly believe their good fortune. They dispatched orders for him to sail the schooner to Velasco. But with the onset of rough weather, Captain Burton delayed his journey. He and his men were rangers, not sailors. Having captured a rich prize, he did not wish to lose it to the elements. Burton's prudence proved a godsend. On June 19th, two Mexican schooners, Comanche and Fanny Butler, dropped anchor in Copano Bay. If the ruse had succeeded once, the Mexicans might fall for it again. Raising the Mexican flag, Burton employed impolite persuasion to convince Watchman's captain to signal his fellow officers. Burton, acting through his Judas goat, brazenly invited the Mexican captains aboard to take a glass of grog. When they arrived on deck, Burton calmly took them prisoner, and then his rangers rowed out to take possession of their ships and crews. All that without firing a shot. Sadly, existing documents do not indicate whether the captains of Fanny Butler and Comanche ever received their glass of grog. Like Watchman, the other captured schooners were bursting with supplies. On June 22nd, all three ships departed Copano Bay bound for Velasco. Arriving safe in port, the vessels then sailed to Galveston Island for condemnation procedures. The cargo was a windfall for the penniless Texas regime. The total came to more than $25,000 worth of bread, beans, beef jerky, rice, and pickled pork. Perhaps even more beneficial, the bonanza also included cartridges, bayonets, gunpowder, and brown Bess muskets. A grateful nation promoted Captain Burton to major. Even in the United States, the exploits of Burton and his Rangers thrilled and amused. A Kentucky native, Edward J. Wilson, had traveled to Texas to fight as a volunteer, but now he took up his pen to fire off an article for one of his state's leading newspapers. With tongue fixed firmly in cheek, he noted,
On yesterday, reports arrived of the capture of 3 Mexican vessels by a troop of horses. These you will call horse marines, I suppose.
the moniker stuck, and although few remember them nowadays, Captain Burton and his horse marines helped set the standard for Texas courage and audacity.